Are we making far-reaching conclusions about corruption in Parliament? Is it a case of a few bad apples? We're focusing today on the body that is supposed to oversight the executive corruption in Parliament. Please use the hashtag checkpoint at KTN News at Yvonne Okwara. My guests tonight, Barack Muluka and Honorable Nicholas Gumbo, who's the chair of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, which is the committee that provides oversight within the legislature, that provides oversight. So I think we couldn't be in better hands tonight. But I'd like to start from the outside looking in. Barack, what does it look like to you with quite a bit that we've heard over the last few weeks?
See, nothing really surprises me to the extent that we are seeing corruption everywhere. Indeed, when you look at what's been happening these past 2 years, 2.5 years, the heads of the various arms of government have acknowledged publicly, sometimes even without any prompting, that there is corruption in the arms of government that they lead. The president has stated a number of times that there is corruption in government, in the executive. He said there's corruption in the office of the president, Arambe Avenue at State House. The head of the judiciary, the chief justice, has a number of times talked about corruption in the judiciary. And the Speaker of the National Assembly has also come out several times and told us that there is corruption. I think the very nature and architecture of our government and governance today is one that predisposes us to corruption. It starts at the electorate. We hear that a lot of the monies that are being stolen, this thing which we call corruption, is actually theft. The money that is being stolen is supposed to be used for the elections. What is so special about elections that people are stealing money to go and use at the elections? It means that they are going to bribe voters, and therefore we must start interrogating ourselves and ask very fundamental questions. What kind of society are we? What kind of people are we? Even as we talk about corruption in all these arms of government, are we coming with clean hands?
To the discussion. Clean hands to the discussion. What worries many, Gumbo, is corruption within Parliament. What's going on in the House?
Thanks, Yvonne. But before I start, let me make an important observation that, which of course you know, that both Barack and I went to the Great Karnotunga High School in Kshs.
Yes, so where we were taught virtues.
Where we were taught virtues,
yes.
So
Yes. It's an important
tutelage of the great and incomparable Morimbocho, the late Brother Innocent de Kock. May his soul rest in peace. So before I start, may I also express gratitude to the great people of Kshs by saying, Minto. But back to your question, yes. I think what the speaker has spoken about, by the way, is not new.
Yeah.
And I don't even expect that we are going to see the last of it. This has happened. I remember way back when I was in school, there was actually a member of parliament who lost his seat because he had lodged false mileage claims. So this is not new. You remember, really, Parliament brings the diversity of Kenyans. At the moment, we are about 349 of us. Clearly, there has to be a few bad apples. And I want to say from the outset that the Speaker has done a very good thing. What I'm not sure about is his methods of doing it. Because you remember that when he was releasing the report, he actually was very biblical. And he based it, I think, on Matthew chapter 7, 1 to 5. And, of course, also the Gospel of John, chapter 8, 3 to 7. There is a problem when you go that route, because when you go that route as a way of dealing with a problem such as this, then inadvertently the Speaker could also have started what you call, quote-unquote, a kangaroo fight, which is not what we need in this.
Just to be clear, when you talk about his methods of approach, because you've also talked about him going biblical.
Yes.
Is it the biblical approach, or is it the approach of asking the EACC to come in and investigate?
Just
to be clear.
You see, I have not seen what the EACC has exposed. You know, when you face, let me give you a perspective to this. I am really an employee of the people of Rarieda. Yeah. Because they are the ones who elected me.
Right.
And technically speaking, the Speaker also is an employee of members of Parliament. When a problem such as this occurs, my view is has the Speaker engaged the internal mechanism? I'll give you an example. Part of the things that the EACC has exposed, for example, is that some files of people who took loans cannot be traced. I mean, what does the Speaker want the EACC to do? To do the filing for Parliament or what? I am just not convinced that the Speaker did enough to use internal mechanisms to resolve these problems.
But it is precisely because of those internal mechanisms that the Speaker of the House said he invited the EACC, because attempts at streamlining that were not fruitful.
What attempt? I sit in Parliament, haven't seen any attempt. And I can tell you, like I've said, these problems are not new. Parliament has been in existence for over 60 years. These problems have been there. And I'm not persuaded that Justin Muturi, by doing what he's doing, is going to bring an end to this problem.
What exactly is the problem with Justin Muturi's methods?
No, what I'm saying is that he would probably have achieved much more by engaging internally than going to the EACC. Because what if I read it correctly, what the EACC did was just an advisory. And I'll give you examples. Parliament as it exists today, there are departments which do not even know what other departments are doing. Is that something you want the EACC to do for you? I can tell you for a fact that I know sometimes the mileage department has no clue what the impress department is doing. They ask questions which have already been answered in the impress department. So really, I am just saying that what the Speaker, and don't let it not be seen that I'm not concerned about these problems. I am.
Because
but I'm
it
just
seems like
no. I am very concerned, and we have even given suggestions, for example, on the issue of mileage, how it can be tackled in a way that will ensure that MPs are enabled to do their work, but also the public gets value for money for every shilling spent. And this is what I'm saying, that if the Speaker had opted to engage, to spend more time in a robust engagement with members of Parliament, he would have probably achieved more than what he's having now.
All right, okay. What are your thoughts on the method and, what the Member of Parliament here is talking about? Particularly because, and I'd like us to go a little bit back in time this year, the Public Accounts Committee riddled with claims of corruption. We had the Powers and Privileges Committee look into it. And what did we see happen out of that? The team was sent home. They were made to apologize. They were barred from a couple of sittings, and we moved on, and now we have a new chair.
Before he comes in, by the way, before he comes in, because you're on live TV, I think it's good to put the things in proper perspective. Only 5 members left the committee. The rest of members remained.
All right. Yes. But what happened to those claims of graft?
I think first context is very important, that we are talking about public funds. And we are talking about funds which honorable members have given themselves access to, or alleged to have given themselves access to, if we want to be charitable to them, using not proper means. In fact, it boils down to theft. And it boils down, Mheshimiwa Engineer, to theft by servant. Because I agree with you that you are our servants and we have put you there. But if you are seen to be in Australia at the same time, you are claiming sitting allowance in the National Assembly at the same time, you are claiming to be up country in Rarieda, that can only be called theft. And it's a matter in which the public has got a very fundamental interest. And therefore, when the Speaker brings in an outsider to come and investigate, I think he has done the right thing, because this can only happen because there is an internal conspiracy, that there are various arms of the National Assembly, whether it's impressed, whether it's people who are dealing with the mileage claim, whether it's a fellow legislator. There would appear to be internal conspiracy. And the best way to deal with it is to bring in an external eye to have a look at it, and to inform the public. The law is very clear that the public has got a right to know what is happening in government. It's not a luxury, it's not a favor.
Okay. And he raises, the point that there is internal collusion, as we've seen, that some MPs sign attendance lists for their fellow MPs who are not present, just so that they can get sitting allowances. So you say you don't quite agree with the method. How would you have done it?
You see, what I'm saying is that, of course, like Barack says, there could not be an external conspiracy. Why I'm saying so, Yvonne, and I want to give you, for example, when it has been reported that an MP was in Australia, I've just given you an example.
Right.
Where, and I'm not talking about hearsay, I'm talking where the impressed section of Parliament doesn't even seem to know what the mileage section of Parliament is doing.
Okay.
On 17th of October last month, I went home on 16th to attend the burial of the father of a former MP of my place. According to the impress section of Parliament, I was supposed to have left the country on 16th of October. That's why I just want to give you an example why it is not correct to make conclusions and why the speaker can sort out this. There's no conspiracy there. According to the Impress department, because that is when
you were supposed to have been out of the country.
According to them, because the trip was starting on 16th. But you see, I can choose when I want to leave because I also have other commitments.
All right.
I left on 17th. So when I came back, according to them, because I went home on 16th, I came back on 17th. According to them, I could not claim mileage because I was already out of the country.
But there's a fundamental issue here that on that 16th, when he's supposed to have left, he's taking impress.
Just a minute.
Yes, I was just going to get to that. So did you receive the impress?
Barack, let me explain. You know why I think I want to make it as but when I came back, because I had not used 1 day, I actually surrendered the impress that I was supposed to have utilized.
So you refunded it?
Yes, I did. And I have checks and receipts from Parliament to that effect. But now when I go to claim mileage, I'm told you cannot because you are out of the country. Now, does the speaker need the EACC to sort out a small problem like that? This is why I'm saying that, yes, we have a problem. And where is the conspiracy in this? This is just one arm of Parliament not working with the other. And it didn't happen just once, by the way.
In the example you've given, allow me to interject. Perhaps you say it's one arm of Parliament not knowing what the other is doing. But there are other cases that have been documented of conspiracy, of collusion. And by the way, not just between members of National Assembly, but also between members of National Assembly and parliamentary staff.
That
so are you disputing that?
No. I am not saying. Don't get me wrong here. I am not saying that what the speaker is saying there is no veracity to it. In fact, I remember I started by saying that he's doing the right thing. I don't agree with his way of doing it because I've just given you examples of things. What does that tell you? That with a bit of improvement of the internal workings of Parliament, some of these things need not appear. You can sort them out. There could be a conspiracy. I personally, of course, would find it, first of all, very shameful not to be in Parliament and ask another member to sign for me, because that is degrading myself and even degrading what I stand for.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because parliamentary committee chairpersons, you are one, are paid responsibility allowances of 150,000 a month, and some of them still claim.
That is news to me, and I'll ask him.
So I want to ask you categorically: do you claim a sitting allowance?
I'll ask him. Of course, like as a member of Parliament, the sitting allowance, first of all, is not. It's not 10,000, as it's saying, and I would want to ask where the money is, because I'm a chair of a committee and I'm not paid 150,000.
So my question is, do you get a sitting allowance?
The sitting,
for the Public Accounts Committee, you are a chair.
Yes, of course, we do get sitting allowances. You're correct.
Including yourself?
Yes, of course I do.
So you get a sitting allowance of 10,000 shillings?
Yes.
And you're still paid a responsibility allowance of 150,000 shillings?
Absolutely, yes.
Why?
Why? Because as chair of committee, my work is not confined to the committee room alone. There are times that, for example, I give you, when we did the IEBC report, I used to go to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning because I have to do the report and cross-check it and do it. My work doesn't stop at the committee. I have to convene to sit after the meeting is over. I have to sit with the technical staff of the committee to do the scheduling and all sorts of things.
So this is work for the Public Accounts Committee?
Absolutely.
And then you get the sitting allowance for what you're saying, which happens afterwards. So I just want to be clear on the work that you do for the Public Accounts Committee specifically.
Yes.
You get a responsibility allowance as the chair, but you also get a sitting allowance.
Yes.
What is a sitting allowance for?
For sitting in the committee. I mean, I found it is part of the responsibilities of being part of my
part of the responsibilities
part of my entitlement.
For which you get a responsibility allowance.
Yes.
So doesn't that seem like a duplication?
I have just told you, Yvonne, that my work as chair doesn't stop at sitting at the committee.
Which is probably why you're given a responsibility allowance.
Yes.
For being the chair, because your work goes beyond sitting in the committee.
Yeah. So what is wrong with that? I mean, it was something that was negotiated with the Salary and Remuneration Commission.
Okay.
I found it there.
All right.
Yeah.
And so you're happy to take the payment?
What do you want me to say? I don't want it.
Well, that's an answer. That's an alternative answer, Parag.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
If it's what has been negotiated, it's what has been accepted, it's what has been documented, I have no issues with that.
Right.
I would not begrudge them that. What concerns me, what rattles me, is where and when people seem to be going out of their way to cheat. Because, I mean, if you have been allocated something, then that falls within your perquisites and whatever. I have no issues with that.
Let's talk a little bit about the Public Accounts Committee, because that's also something, and he mentioned,
Yes.
you know, that some of the members are back. But are you happy with the way the allegations and the counter allegations of graft were dealt with? Because that's also something that, you know, many say is part of what we're seeing now in terms of corruption in the House. Some serious allegations were made against the chair at the time, and we didn't see anything happening towards that, which would probably lend credence to the poll that we saw out by Ipsos, where many Kenyans said, well, we know there's corruption, but we're not confident that anybody will be caught, you know, prosecuted and found guilty of it. Do you think what happened within the PAC could raise some of that?
No, they smothered it and swept it under the carpet. I think the challenge here was not so much that certain things had been happening. I think the challenge here was that people were found out. The challenge here was that someone seemed to have gotten unhappy and spilled the beans, and so they went behind closed doors and spoke to one another severely and said, how can you do this, how dare you? And they, of course, got rid of a few people. The rest remained there. We remember that at the same time there were issues about the agriculture committee
as well,
and which just disappeared. And even as we speak now, there's the issue of Galana Kulalu. And Galana Kulalu, we have got very reliable information that once again they were trying to avoid sharing the information with the public. And therefore we start seeing that the National Assembly is not playing its oversight role as it's supposed to be doing.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for anybody, but my
schoolmate.
My schoolmate.
Your senior schoolmate.
My senior schoolmate is not getting it quite
pulling
correct.
rank now.
Actually, the objections
touch.
of my good friend Abdi Noor and his committee on the Galana Kulalu were very clear. They didn't support the project. They have a report to that effect, that they didn't think that the project was viable.
Okay.
I mean, and it's common sense, really. And there is nothing to hide about Galana Kulalu because it's out there. If you invest 600,000 per acre to get 40 bags of maize, what economics are those? I mean, even if you are to sell those 40 bags of maize at 4,000 shillings each, how do you invest 600,000 to get 160,000? But having spoken about how the PSC was handled, by the way, you know I was not there at that time.
Yes.
I came in after all the things that went on. You know, there is nothing that insulates a member of parliament from criminal liability. There is nothing that stops agencies of state, the DPP, the EACC, from taking action on members of parliament. We are answerable to the law just like anybody else.
Right.
So really to say that parliament swept it under the carpet may not be quite correct. I think we could be talking about, we could be asking, why didn't other agencies, because remember all those members, by the way, all members, even the 5 that left the committee, including the 5 and those that did not leave the committee, they were questioned by EACC. What we could be asking then, if they found anything credible to make either one or many of them culpable, why have they not? Why has no action been taken?
All right.
Yeah.
So it is your belief, if there's anything that is found, you know, some incriminating evidence that members
Without
of
a doubt,
National Assembly.
without a doubt.
Okay.
You see, we have to lead by example. I mean, part of our work is
Right.
to make the laws.
Yeah.
And if we cannot maintain fidelity to the laws that we make, then it's an exercise in futility.
Okay, so tell us how the Public Accounts Committee is different now under your leadership.
You're asking me to judge myself, but
Yes.
what I can tell you is that
Give
what
yourself an A.
I will not give myself an A, nor will I give myself an F. What we have done, I cannot say what we are doing differently. No, everybody comes with their own leadership style.
Yeah, I guess maybe why should people trust your committee now?
It will be based on the outputs of our work. Look at, for example, the issues that happened at me. A long time ago, accounting officers used to bring documents to committees of parliament. As a matter of course, they bring it, you say, okay, have you brought the document? How were Kenyans able to know about the atrocious purchases at the Ministry of Devolution if it was not for the dedication of members of Public Accounts Committee who said, wait a minute, you've given us this bundle here. It purports to answer the questions that we have asked. But how well does it answer those questions? Really, credit must go to those members, and in particular to my good friend, the Honorable Abdikadir Mohammed, who said, look, you have given us these bundles here. What, this appendix, you're trying to tell us that a big pen was bought at 8,700 shillings.
Okay.
Does that give a picture of a committee which is taking its work seriously, or one which is just flipping through the pages so that it seems to be working?
Okay.
I cannot judge myself. It's out there for the public to judge. We've just done a report which was halfway done by the old committee and halfway done by the new committee on the JSC.
Right.
It's in the public domain. It's up to the public to judge us.
Okay.
But what I can say is that what we have done and what we're doing, we're trying to inculcate teamwork, because at the end of the day, the credit doesn't come to me. The credit comes to the committee.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like us to talk a little bit about, corruption in the country in general, and perhaps, who's outing the corruption scandals. And some would say, Barak, that in the last few weeks or so, the opposition has done quite a job of keeping the government in check when it comes to the Eurobond saga, when it comes to, even with the cabinet. You will recall on just about the same day that the court coalition said, disband the cabinet, and then we had the announcement of the cabinet reshuffle. What would you say has been the opposition's role, just, in general, in terms of keeping the government on its toes?
Yes, transiting even from what Mheshimiwa has said, I want to acknowledge that the PSC itself is doing a good job actually with regard to looking at others, but they also need to look at what they are doing within the house themselves. And within that broader context, the role of the opposition is really to keep the government on its toes. And some of the things that we have heard from the government are a little disturbing. That we have had the Deputy President, for example, saying these are noisemakers, they want to sabotage the government, they want to sabotage the economy by frightening investors. We have had the leaders of the majority, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate, picking up that script and going to town with it. I think they are wrong. We are entitled as a public to information, we're entitled to knowledge, and the people in the opposition are doing their work quite adroitly this time round.
Okay. All right. You would agree, obviously?
Yes, of course. We are trying our best. But let me say this, Yvonne, that until and unless Kenyans accept that corruption is a problem for all Kenyans, we are not going anywhere. And I'll just give you an example. Recently, I went to a church service, and I told the priest that, over 80% of Kenyans subscribe to the Christian. In churches, you see politicians like myself literally sagging under the weight of notes to give donations. What is stopping the churches from demanding that, tell us, okay, we will accept this money? But when I told them, why aren't you asking politicians who bring millions of shillings and their salaries and incomes are known where they're getting this money from? The mood changed. I expected people to start saying that this, unless and until we embrace, it becomes the collective determination of Kenyans to fight graft, we are going nowhere. Tackling graft at Parliament alone will not do. Tackling graft at the judiciary alone will not do. Tackling graft at the executive alone will not do. Because as they say, it takes two to tango. this thing is a bigger problem, and we must resolve as a country, because the problems are there for all to see.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear about, like, for example, the issues that are going on with the Eurobond, and by the way, I want to tell you, because our rules don't permit me to say, but we are also working on that. And some of the answers that we are getting, it baffles you when, for example, a cabinet secretary gives you an answer which is completely contrary to the law, and says this is how we did things.
Right.
So really, we must decide as a country that this thing, all of us must come together, and the last thing that we want to do is finger pointing. When, for example, we did the devolution thing, you know, we try as a committee to be as bipartisan as possible, because one of the rules of a good public accounts committee is that you should insulate it from politics.
Absolutely.
So that you become as objective as possible. We came together, members of the Jubilee coalition, who by the way, are working very well, when they demanded that the people at devolution ministry should take responsibility and step aside. Some of these fellows were being threatened in their own backyard. So really, unless we take out politics, partisan politics, and the pervasive problem of negative ethnicity, where Kenya seeing ethnicity in everything and in all things and everything, it's going to be very difficult. Okay,
so corruption pervasive in just about all spheres, you know, from the religious society, the common mwananchi paying a vibe. Okay, Senator Kithure Kindiki is today on record saying that the opposition has no moral authority to speak about corruption in the government, that corruption reigns also within CORD ranks. And speaking specifically about the allegations that have been made against Moses Wetangula, who's a senator, in regards to BAT, what is CORD's stand? Can you tell us regarding that allegation?
As far as I'm concerned, both BAT and Wetangula, at least the lady who was at BAT at that time, have denied that Wetangula ever had anything to do with BAT. So really, unless Senator Kithure Kindiki, who by the way is Wetangula's counterpart in the Senate, unless he can produce something tangible to say that indeed he was. You see, this idea of saying that as long as you are doing it and we are also doing it, what's wrong with it? This is where we are getting it wrong. Two wrongs have never made the right.
But shouldn't that be fixed also within
your there is ranks, corruption, whether it is...
The allegations against him are not just with the BAT.
Whether it is within CORD, that's what I said, that all of us, and all of us, of course, has to mean Jubilee and CORD. Corruption will be bad, whether it is in CORD, whether it is in Jubilee. If it can be shown that even we as CORD are condoning corruption, then something is wrong and action has to be taken. And when action is being taken, there should be no question of political grandstanding. And people, for example, when they are asked, and that I tell you, even from my side, I don't agree with, that when people are being summoned to the EACC, they have this army of supporters who are, you know, beating drums. That is not the way to do it.
All right. Barak? Is there enough being done within the CORD coalition, or is that just sort of subterfuge and trying to divert the issues, do you think?
You can't say one thing from one end of the mouth, and when circumstances seem to be now pointing at you, you say different things from another end of the same mouth. The mouth that was saying that Waiguru should step down should also advise my good friend Moses Wetangula to step aside, because we are talking about probity, we are talking about leading by example, and what's good for the goose, the Americans have told us, is good also for the gander. So what's good for Jubilee, what's good for Anne Waiguru is good also for my good friend Moses Wetangula. We don't expect that BAT are going to be getting onto the hustings and saying that yes, we have done this. They should do what the good lady at the East African breweries did. She denied, and apart from denying, she also resigned and created space for investigation. And afterwards, when you have proven that you are right, you are vindicated, you take action against those who made these malicious allegations against you. But you cannot be telling Waiguru to step aside, and when your turn comes, you cannot step aside.
Your final comments on that? Should Moses Wetangula step aside until he is found to have done nothing wrong?
Up to now, really, and I'm not defending Moses Wetangula.
And step aside in the context of a politician, you know,
well, stepping aside in the context of politician is very different. In the case of Anne Waiguru, documents were presented by her minister. And remember, last year in December, the president, the cabinet collectively gave cabinet secretaries far-reaching powers with regard to procurement, financial management. So there were documents to suggest that something was incredibly wrong at devolution and
some
planning.
would say there's documents as well that were provided by the BBC.
IBC, for example, we had a case that really parallels this BAT one, and there was something that was happening in the United Kingdom where they were talking about what we christened the chicken gate.
Yes.
And we were asking people at the IBC to step aside.
Yeah.
We had not seen any documents where we were telling them very robustly, step aside.
Yeah.
This probity that Mheshimiwa is talking about is going to work only when it is completely colorblind, it's party blind, it's tribe blind, that it only looks at things as what they are.
Okay. Your final words as we conclude
I want to
in less
disagree
than a
with my
minute.
senior. In the case of the chicken gate, what came out was based on evidence which was given in a British court. Please let us put things in proper perspective. So
let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Should more evidence come out in your view,
yes, without a doubt.
should Moses Wetangula then rescind his seat? And you know, he's also going before the IBC, and I don't want us to prejudice what's going to happen there. But some would say the same thing. That happened in a court of law, and he was accused of, you know, voter bribery. So should the same apply?
Should documentation be produced to show that he actually got compromised in one way or the other? What I do not know, and if you look at the Constitution, it's very clear, and the circumstance under which a member of parliament, don't forget that a senator is a member of parliament, should vacate office.
Yeah.
Of course, if it is in conflict with the chapter 6 of our Constitution, then of course we would advise him to step aside and clear his name, because we cannot be saying one thing with the right side of the mouth, as my senior says, and another with the left side of the mouth. But up to now, from where we are, nothing has come forth for us to ask him to step aside.
All right, okay, all right. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. The Chair of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, Honorable Nicholas Gumbo and Barak Muluka, thank you very much for speaking extensively on this matter, as well as we have said here. Thanks both for your time. Your views continue to come in. In fact, we have a tweet here from former Member of Parliament, Honorable Franklin Bett, who says, who are these former MPs on the payroll? Name them. The public and I need to know. I'm a former MP. Okay, keep your comments coming in. Hashtag is Checkpoint. We'll be right back.
So where is my consultancy fees?